Elliot Mintz, A Sound Portrait. Sirius XM DJ Jim Ladd.
DJ Jim Ladd strikes a chord with the attuned ear. He has the ability to use songs like a painter uses a palette, and the time he is on the air is a canvas. His perception isn't the product of a commercial routine, but a deep and abiding conviction for relaying quality music to his audience. He knows, instinctively, the sound of powerful music. The times in which we live may be constrained to a commercial set list, but DJ Jim Ladd will not and never has allowed himself to be narrowed to the sound of convention. He plays music from throughout the rock and roll landscape. DJ Jim Ladd has inhabited the radio airwaves since 1969, first heard on KNAC, and later heard on FM stations like KLOS, KMET, and KMPC. Ladd is one of the last champions of freeform radio and the idea that radio is for the listener. He has slipped the noose of an ever-tightening terrestrial radio and is now heard on Sirius XM by those that seek liberated radio today. DJ Jim Ladd has interviewed many noteworthy people, including John Lennon, Jackson Browne, Roger Waters, Stephen Stills, George Harrison, and a great many others, including Elliot Mintz on several occasions throughout the years. Ladd says he learned the art of interviewing in part from Elliot Mintz. The filmed interview, entitled Mintz on Mintz, can be found on ElliotMintz.com. It was conducted by Ladd in Elliot's home. It is an in-depth examination of all things Mintz. Don't touch that dial. DJ Jim Ladd is up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome this man, DJ Jim Ladd. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's my pleasure, Paul.
There's this very talented man, very interesting man. He's launched this website, ElliotMintz.com, and the flagship interview is this filmed interview that you, DJ Jim Ladd, you did with Elliot Mintz. How did you first come to meet Elliot Mintz?
We were working together at the same radio station here in L.A. I was just starting out in my career. It was only the second station I'd worked for. Elliot had been in the business a few years longer, and he worked at the very first FM station in Los Angeles, KPPC, and then was working at a station at KLOS where I was working, and that's where I met him, and he was doing this extraordinary talk show, which I would listen to and just was in awe of the way he interviewed people. And so basically I just decided I would just rip him off for everything I could, because I didn't know how to interview anybody, and he was so great at it. So I learned a lot from him.
The first time you shook his hands, you looked in his eyes. What was your first impression of this guy, Elliot Mintz?
First off, extremely intelligent. You just knew by listening to him and meeting him. He was very bright, a very gentle person, and also someone who had a kind of a spiritual aura about them. So you felt comfortable. I felt comfortable meeting him, and felt like this guy knew some things that I didn't know.
You've interviewed Elliot Mintz several times, going back to, there was the interview you did with him in 1980, and then there was one recently that you did, the 30-year anniversary of John Lennon's passing, and then this Mintz on Mintz. What is it like to interview such an extraordinary interviewer?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. You would think, and it might be this way with other people, that if you're in that situation, that would be difficult. But Elliot makes it really easy because he's done hundreds, probably thousands of interviews in his career. So he knows what makes a good interview from the interviewer's side. So when the tables are turned and I'm asking him questions, he is very expertise in knowing how to answer those questions. Plus, he's probably the most articulate person I've ever met. You know, he's just, by his nature, he's a very articulate and engaging speaker. So it's very easy to interview Elliot.
This filmed interview, the Mintz on Mintz interview that's on ElliotMintz.com, can you tell us your recollections of those evenings? What are the memories, and how did it play out?
Well, it was certainly enjoyable and fascinating. I went to his house. He was kind enough to invite me to do the interview. And there was a good deal of preparation because Elliot was very meticulous in preparing the film crew and making sure everything looked just right. So when we finally sat down to do the interview, I was comfortable. And then once we got into the interview, I just tried to speak to him as if we were having a conversation without the cameras. So we could just go anywhere we wanted and explore all these different areas while keeping in mind that I was there to elicit information about his extraordinary career. But it was a great evening. I really enjoyed it. It went on for quite some time, but it was a lot of fun and fascinating. And the more it went on, the more I got into it.
Having checked out the website, I'm sure, what do you think about Elliot's website now that it's live?
I think it's one of the most extraordinary websites I've ever seen. It has more information packed into that thing than probably most websites you would go, and I certainly don't know of any other website quite like that where you can go and get all of this extraordinary radio, TV, and music history in one place that's all generated by this one person. And the way that it's set up, using the jukebox as the menu, it makes it really easy to navigate, extremely easy. And once you start playing around with it, you're just hooked. You better bring a sandwich and some coffee because you're going to be there a while.
It's a lot of content.
Oh, my gosh. It's extraordinary that one person could generate that much content. But thank God Elliot saved all this stuff over the years. You know, not a lot of people do that. I certainly wasn't that meticulous in my career, but Elliot, just thank God he did that, because it's like the Smithsonian of radio and TV here through the eyes of one man.
Well, what is something about Elliot Mintz we would be surprised to know?
He's Batman. He's actually Batman, yeah.
You know, I've asked Elliot who he is, and he said, I really don't know. And now you're saying he's Batman. Who would you say he is?
He tries to keep his identity secret, but I'm here to tell you he's Batman.
My last question. Who is DJ Jim Ladd?
I would be Bruce Wayne in this case.
I thought you were going to say Robin.
No, I'm not good in tights. I don't look good in tights. So if Elliot's Batman, I'd be Bruce Wayne. Without the money.
Well, Mr. Ladd, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Paul, it's been my pleasure. Great questions. You're a good interviewer yourself, and thanks for asking some smart questions, and I hope this worked out for you.
All right. Keep on rocking.
Last thing I want to say is go to ElliotMintz.com and check it out. Check out ElliotMintz.com, because you will absolutely be fascinated and engaged, and there's so much there. I mean, if you got a guy that is going to bring you an interview with John Lennon, and then you can click on an interview of Jack Nicholson, or click on an interview of Mick Jagger, and then click on an interview of John Wayne, you're in for a hell of a ride.
It's really something.
Yeah.
Again, thank you very much. Have a good one.
My pleasure. Thanks, Paul.